So grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, Howie's a hero to me.
John, you joined us before, and it was a pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave, and you just devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true.
Good evening.
Good evening, Howie.
We had some technical difficulties signing in. That was my fault. But we had Justin.
It wouldn't be Thursday without a technical difficulty.
Yeah. No. John's not with us tonight, but
he's with us in spirit.
Yeah, he better be listening.
Right? I mean, we'll never know, but let's threaten him. Yeah. So I wonder what. Yeah. Right. So what?
What is going on?
I guess the thing that I've really been in the grip of course, I think you were saying just a moment ago, and perhaps a lot of us remark it anymore, life is like a movie, because the pendulum swing is from either direction, like staggeringly, I'm in disbelief all the time.
Yeah, I got some information tonight that. You still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I lost a second. Yeah, I got in contact with somebody that gave me a story from small town. I don't know particularly well, and I can get more into it later. But it was just it's basically a story of corrupt. It's another corruption story. It doesn't have anything to do with children, but things that is happening to her, and it's just stuff is just when you really start paying attention to what's going on around you, and you really get involved in some of these things, and you get away from your television and you get into real life, you realize, there's, just like, John said, in the introduction, you just feel like so much of everything you've ever learned and understood about this world and this country it's a lie. And, it just keeps happening. So, but we keep on fighting, and you just keep on fighting.
Yeah. I don't know if I've begun to fight. I've shown up for some stuff, and I tried real hard, and I can't believe how naive I was, a year ago, Actually, let's see, a year ago was June. So we already knew Bernie was taking the dive. I don't know if you came to this through any burner activities, but a year ago today, I was girding my loins to go to the con. And it was dawning on me. I'd known the fix was probably in since the database lockout the Christmas before. But the con was especially, I don't know if you went, but it was a really, it was a tremendously disillusioning experience. And it's just been one after another ever since.
Yeah. I mean, and I was a Bernie supporter, in the primary, but and I consider myself, politically savvy and stuff, but I didn't know anything about these super delegates. I just didn't know. And I was, I'm watching, Bernie, Bernie wins states, but all the super delegates are all for, it was, I don't know, it was like 500 to like 30, 500 and something to like 30. I'm like, come on, how can it be five? There's only 30 people, and they were basically, he was one of them, and a couple of people from Vermont, a couple of people from Washington. So no matter what happens, and you saw all these people at his rallies, and there's all this enthusiasm, and everyone's sending in $27 and was it 13 cents? And I can't believe I still remember that, but no matter what happened, I knew it wasn't going to, you just knew it wasn't going to happen. And
see, now I was more naive than that. I actually, I'm going to give you my bona fides, my resume of failure for the endeavors I made for Bernie. I realized immediately upon researching the whole story with the database shutout that it was incredibly important that we start to swing superdelegates. So I actually found someone with the power of my charm, and maybe he was amused by my passion. I got somebody to build me a website designed to swing superdelegates. I did all the research, he did all the programming, and I only focused on the delegates who were undeclared or who were with her. And as you may or may not know, Hillary did a tour in 2015. She actually came to Minnesota, where all the state Democratic parties met for a huge celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And at that party, she bought 33 states. She bought their superdelegates, and she bought changes in their rules. She got primaries moved, all the shenanigans. Mm-hmm, she just cut deals. I just picture her like a gangster, back room making sausage for real. So I found a way into one of these Bernie training sessions, and I spoke passionately to the person there to train us, and said I had this site and that it was incredibly important we immediately get on offense. And he kind of didn't know what to do with that. And I talked to the guy over him, and I got the strangest vibes in the world. I can't explain. For all I know, he was one of those moles we've heard about. And for all I know, so was the friendly guy, just a different type of mole. So I contacted Bernie's office, and they weren't very interested in it either. Come to find out toward the end of the game, when it was way too late, Bernie made actually a PR push for us to try to swing the superdelegates. Do you remember that?
No, I do not.
Late last spring? Yeah. Anyway, so the fix being in and Bernie being a sheepdog has been dawning on me very painfully for the past year. Yes, I tried that, and I tried some other shit that didn't work. That involved going to try to get into the office of the governor of a state and delivering petitions that I'd had signed by hand, trying to partner with Move On, not knowing then that it was a George Soros operation, right. Being shut out by the nurses union, in their office, trying to get them to participate in this petition signing, or at least publicizing it. And that petition, of course, was to force California to honor their own constitution and open their goddamn primary. It's right there in their constitution, Article 2, Section 5. If I knew it, Bernie knew it. It says right there. It says right there, open primary.
Okay.
You tell me what open means. So I tried a lot of stupid shit, and I guess I'm going to propose something like that again tonight. But I'm making this segue now because it's because we didn't show up, perhaps, that those things weren't successful. Or maybe it's because Bernie was always an insider. I guess I'm trying to jump into my pitch right now, Howie. Is it too soon?
No, you're fine. No, I have a couple things. I just wanted to jump in because, I've had people telling me for years, why don't you do something? But because I didn't, I don't have a lot of friends. I don't have a lot of acquaintances. And the people that I talk to, I talked about the things that that I feel. This is before, Pizzagate and Pedogate. But I would have done something for Bernie, but I didn't feel like it was going to do anything. And I'm not join an organization, get on the phones, I'm knock on doors, hand out. I'm not that I'm just not that kind of guy. So, but I would have for him. I really would have.
Well, what I learned was trying to play by their rules can never work because those rules are rules designed for us to lose.
Right.
It's definitely time to go outside those rules. I'm not asking you for your permission. I'm not trying to play by your rules.
Right. Well, I mean, with everything now, people have, it's in people's hands, and showing up at rallies and going by the rules. We see where it gets us.
Well, precisely. It's a losing game.
It gets us nowhere. Oh, well, we tried and all this other, all that work you put in. I mean, looking back in retrospect, it was all for naught. But why was it for naught,
Well, maybe it was a training ground. Maybe it was the process I personally had to go through and push a few willing strangers through to learn that it's my belief that the Democratic Party should be disbanded. I don't think they deserve to exist. Their charter should be revoked. Their funding should be taken away. There should be no Democratic Party. And the only way we could possibly achieve that is if we press the case of the actually hacked election, which was the primary, which was perpetrated by the DNC. They hacked their own goddamn election. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh, I totally. Well, the Russians didn't do it. I know that for a fact. So
thank you. Thank you.
We're working on it, but we're not. We'll get to sort of what the topic of all this is. Of we have this information. If I were, I mean, a lot of things that have come out, whether it was Stone Tier and Hillary's, IT guy, Paul Gambetta, whether it's Pizzagate related stuff, whether it's the DNC and Seth Rich. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I would feel very comfortable walking into court with all the information that we already have. I feel like I could present the case and win the case.
Except for the fact the judiciary is stacked. But in a sane world.
In a perfect world. But it's right, of course. Because apparently there's some type of vacuum or evaporation machine that when you put information out there, it just goes away and they just twist, everything around. And no, go ahead.
I didn't intend to interrupt you. I'm terribly sorry.
No, I need.
It's not that my thoughts are more important, so please continue. If I give the floor up, just go ahead and take it.
Oh, I'll jump in.
Okay, so in this void, I'll just insert, it's really important we look at the judiciary, the role of the judiciary. I don't know if you're aware of this, and I forget which state I read about it in my research this past year, but one of the states decided to stop listing the names of judges in their ballots. You would no longer be voting for judges. That was an administrative decision. It was just removed. Now, I don't remember which state that was in or what circuit that might have been applicable to. I'll confess I haven't spent a lot of time studying how the Supreme Court rules over the circuits and where the circuits all rank relative to one another. Right. But these people are mostly appointed. And I can think of 2 Obama appointees off the top of my goddamn head that ought to be brought up on charges. We should put them in the stocks. If this was Game of Thrones, throw them through that hole in the floor thing. I'm talking about Judge Amy Berman Jackson, who on Memorial Day or for Memorial Day weekend dismissed the wrongful death lawsuits of the families of the men left to die at Benghazi. I mean, the shit is cinematic. It's so villainous, again, I'm in a state of disbelief at all times. Then there's that guy in, is it Illinois? Check me, Howie. It's where that little girl got assaulted by 3 teen refugee immigrant criminals. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, wait a second. The high school girl?
No, Twin Falls, Idaho. That little girl was lured into the laundry room at her apartment complex, and 3 teenage refugee criminal boys violated her, recorded it.
I don't even know this case. I don't even know this case.
They got 0 time. 0. Nothing. Are you kidding me? In what world is that sane? Are we in the upside down? Yes, indeed we are. How about all these judges letting all these criminal, unstable... first of all, I love people who volunteer to serve their communities, and I do not think by any means that, especially the foot soldier types, the ones that interact with us, are bad. However, these unstable, weak, poorly trained cops, trigger-happy assholes who end up assassinating citizens, and then these judiciaries, these systems, let them walk. What is that for? Is that to foment more dissent between the working class? Is that to put us against one another when in fact this shit's being imposed on us? I tend to think yes.
Trying to get up to this case. The girl was 5 years old. They pled guilty for 10 months. All right, we can get back to the case. They were refugees, and once again they call it an assault on a 5-year-old girl.
Well, because they're trying to erase rape by erasing the word.
Well, you know what? I know. And the more, these cases that you read, you have to generally get down to, you have to get 5 paragraphs in before you realize that these children are being raped or, whatever. And where they don't generally say raped, sexual assaulted or blah, blah, blah. But it's never in the article. And most people don't read. Just headlines.
And that's on us. If you can't realize that it's not all about, 140 characters, you can't get it all from 140 characters, shame on you. And I acknowledge there's been a dumbing down and a shortening of our attention spans. And my God, what's happening in Flint to this very moment? Genocide. However, those of us with some wits about us need to fucking get our heads out of the sand and read the words and understand what it means when certain words are missing. I read when that Jacob Schwartz fuck got busted, the Prince of the Young Dems of Manhattan, that de Blasio friend, that selfie with Robbie Mook fuck, excuse me. I read that coverage of his predilection, his enjoyment of 6-month-old infants being raped was described as people having sex with 6-month-old infants. No. You cannot take that word away. That word is rape. Having sex with. Shame on you.
I didn't see that, but it absolutely does not surprise me. This is why we are in the situation that we're in with this, because people are not thinking about this. Because if you put that case on the front of the New York Times, and by the way, I went and searched the New York Times for Jacob Schwartz. 0 results.
Oh, did Cuomo say we're not allowed to read it or something?
It was in the Daily News and it was in the Post. The New York Times did not deem that any of the news that's fit to print.
Is that still there?
All the news that's fit to print, yeah.
That's still their tag?
Unfortunately, yeah. All the news that's fit to print.
Is news in quotes?
Yeah, it's like all fake news. I saw the Washington Post the other day, and let me look it up real quick. It was something about democracy. And,
was it about it dying?
No. Yes, democracy. There you go.
Wait, I know it. It's stick a fork in it, right?
Yeah, democracy dies in the darkness. In darkness.
I mean, if that's not a movie with Tom Cruise, I don't know what is.
Well, I guess they are the light. And anybody, by the way, speaking of light, anybody that was tuning in to listen to Neil Wolf tonight, he wasn't able to make it. I guess I should have prefaced that in the beginning. No, everyone's going to stop listening now. But if you go to Neil went to the ballpark today, where Steve Scalia was shot, and he basically called out all the media that was, there to do reports. They ran away from him, but he pulled out his bullhorn and he let them have it. It was pretty interesting. So he did that on Periscope. So if you go to on Twitter, if you go on Twitter to the light reports, he has Periscopes up, or if you go on Periscope and look at the light reports. And it was a great thing. He just went to the actual ball field. He lives very close. He lives close enough there, and just started shouting at the media. do your job, report on this stuff, not, report on the child trafficking, report on the, the pedophilia. You're ignoring all the stories. So it was,
Wow, that's a must see.
Yeah, it was great. And I was with, did you see, I was with him first, it was on the Friday we went to the, this is back in April, I guess. Mm-hmm. And we went to the DC police headquarters. It was just him, me, and one other person, and it was basically calling them out to answer us. Somebody on Twitter, somebody had found there was a password protected site on Comet Ping Pong's website. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Okay, and supposedly somebody had found child pornography. I cannot confirm that, but that's what was told that they actually found, and the child pornography was sent to the Washington D.C. police, and since that it's been dead silent. So we went in front to ask them about that, and of course nobody came out to address our concerns or questions, but it was more or less an optic to let them know that we're paying attention and we want answers. So that's something that's still out there. I don't have confirmation that there was child pornography, but I'm asking. I'm trying to ask the questions that there were. And then the next day we went to the Science March. I don't know if you saw any video from that. That was a lot of fun.
I don't know if what I saw was the Science March. I've seen, quite a few things, and I was aware of that. I don't know what to call it, but I was aware that it was rumored that there had been pornography found in that portal. But right. I did see the event in the park with, I think it was you and Honeybee, and reading Becky's statement.
Right. Yeah. That was March 25th.
That wasn't the climate march, was it?
Mm-mm. No, I went back. I went back to meet up with. I wanted to go down and support Neil because he was going out in front of the DC police headquarters. So I went down. Then that was on Friday, and then Saturday we were going to do something. We heard about there was supposed to be a Trump march, and then we heard about the Science March, and how many people are going to show up at a Science March? So whatever. So we're like, all right, maybe we'll stop by that thing and kind of troll the crowd. Well, lo and behold, 40,000 people showed up. It was this massive thing. So it was 40,000, and then they pretended it was about science, but it was really just it was more of a resistance kind of science / resistance march, and it was Neil, myself, and Tiffany. She came in from Pittsburgh, and it was the three of us in the midst of throngs of people. And, I was holding my, Pizzagate is real sign, and Neil was yelling at him with a bullhorn, and Tiffany was recording the whole thing. And, and we got nothing. We got 99.9% resistance on that. I mean, you're crazy, you're this, you're that. And it was, but we had a great time. It was actually a lot of fun. Actually, no, it really was. And I encourage anybody to go out and do it. So, but it's good to have people with you doing these things.
Well, it's critical.
Yeah. And hopefully we're going to start getting, March 25th was a disappointment. I thought there were going to be a lot more people there. I didn't really know, but we may have had at times there might have been 150, 200 people there, maybe. But it wasn't enough. That thing was, people were really pushing for that, and we were hoping for massive crowds.
Well, what's happening is that these paid protesters are sucking all the air out of the room. What a perfect crop of ne'er-do-wells. You have the most expensive degrees in history, ain't no jobs. Yeah. Your master's in Keanu Reeves movies doesn't apply to reality. Are you angry? Are you a little socially awkward? Maybe you've got one of these weird syndromes. Restless leg, maybe? Here's $14 an hour to act like an asshole. I can just
Yeah.
imagine, my God. What they
Yeah,
used to do would have been what? Maybe something productive?
but they just don't know. I mean, the signs were, I mean, I might be able to remember some for the Science March, but they were they were just completely inane. Like, and, a lot of it was, anti-Trump stuff. Like, Trump is like destroying science. I'm like, and this is back in April. So I'm like, in three, like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
First of all, the shit's not even clever.
Yeah. He's not funding science and this and that. He's taken away from this and that. And like, listen, I mean, I could get on, it's like all these people like NASA. Yeah. And like, listen, I can get on a ton of conspiracy theories about NASA and how much money NASA gets. And I'm like, what have you done for me lately, NASA? Like, what with the $20 billion that you get a year? Like, where's my float? Where's my hovercraft?
Where's my jetpack?
Yeah, where's my jewelry? Yeah, I expect, I was watching the Jetsons back in the 70s. Like, I ain't got none of it. Like,
where's our solar-powered freeways?
Yeah, solar. We got like 3 windmills and, every now and again, and, a couple of houses have solar panels. It's just whatever.
It's straight up nonsensical. And that's, I guess, maybe that's the literal side effect of the red pill. I mean, I'm astonished at how nonsensical and transparent all this crap is. Are you kidding me?
Nobody, it's, getting back to the Science March, it's, we're talking about child trafficking, child sexual abuse. And 3 of us are surrounded by a ton of people. And I'm telling you, not one person would engage us in conversation. It's just, I think I keep using this word, and I don't even know if I'm using it correctly anymore. Everyone's snarky, like they're with a smile, and they're just condescending, and calling you crazy. Is snarky the right adjective?
It's one that I like, and it's probably a bit nicer than we could use. So,
well, fine. I'm gonna stick with it then. And they're all, like you're standing there, like literally talking about, expose pedophilia, child sex trafficking, and people are walking by with smiles on their face.
Isn't it surreal? My God.
Crazy or lewd. I mean, well, some people were angry, but, and some people were angry about that. They, I apologize. I shouldn't be bringing this up at your Science March. I realize, but it's going where people are. But the most poignant moment of the entire thing was there was it was towards the end, and everyone was marching from wherever they started up to the Capitol, and we walked like alongside of them, and we got to a point where like ahead, and everybody's like walking past us, going up to the Capitol, and there's this couple standing there, probably I'll say in their 30s. And the woman was redhead, and I forget her husband, boyfriend, whatever he was. And they weren't marching. They were just sort of, they had stopped there. But they kept, like, they had smiles on their face. They might have said something. So after about 10 minutes, I had said to her, I was like, "Hon, what?" Like, I said, "Is there something funny? Like, what's so funny? Like, what do you am I amusing you or something?" And I'm like, we're talking about child sex trafficking and child sexual abuse, and you have a big grin on your face, and she just dropped. She's like, basically something to the effect of, you want to know about child sexual abuse? I was abused as a teenager. Da da da. I know what this is about, and all this other stuff. And I said, "Hun, you're telling me that you were abused as a teenager, and you're sitting here like laughing at me? I don't like what is going on?" It's on video. There's a video of it out there, and but it just blew my mind. It blew my mind. And I generally don't engage people, but for some, they were there for like 10 minutes, and they just had the smile on their face. And then for, you know, and I believed her. Like, she was making that, like, when I said those words, and like, I mean, like, that smile like went away from her face, and she might have been tearing up. And I said, "Hon, this is why this is what we're doing here." But,
What was her response to that?
Oh, she went on her little thing that I don't know the word, if she was raped or abused, molested as a teenager, and I know about it, and then she just walked away, because I was basically dumbfounded. I was like I couldn't believe the person that was standing there laughing at me for 10 minutes is now, confessing to being a survivor of abuse. And this is what we're up against. I don't know how to qualify that situation.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of that interview Milo did with Joe Rogan that reemerged earlier this year. There's like a critical 4 minutes where Milo, who you all probably have some awareness of, or maybe not, he's some kind of firebrand, some kind of symbol, some kind of something. And he has been the victim of a pedophile priest in his youth, young teen. He brandishes that as like a sexual outlaw bad, as opposed to something that has happened bad to him. And I guess because of that experience, he has some kind of, I don't know what you call it, sociopathy, lack of sympathy, dissociativeness.
Yeah.
Where he's coquettishly telling Rogan about watching, quote, desperately young boys drugged and raped at Hollywood bigwig yacht and house parties. People of the stature of the producer and director of the X-Men franchise. And if you don't know who that is, look him up, and then look up An Open Secret.
Did Milo name him?
No, he was afraid. I think he said it might be dangerous to name him. That being said, what in the hell is the matter with Milo? What in the hell is the matter with people? I've seen more people come out as, survivors in the last year, random people, strangers online mostly. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry, now what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And that's like where the fail is. That's where the fail persistently is. Like that poor, broken, sad woman you dealt with. Like this awful, sad, broken, whatever he is, Milo. I don't know if that's something in the water, something in the sky, something in our food. Is this a side effect of Roundup? But this is how the world ends.
Well, somebody who was a survivor that I know, and she just contacted me, and she basically was saying that a lot of survivors they're just depending on the circumstances, because whether they can still be they're still in harm's way, or just the stigma or whatever, basically it just comes down to a lot of survivors are just afraid to speak up. And,
well, if we're talking about trafficking survivors, my God.
Well,
but if you're talking about an adult who's emerged from that and is now functional to whatever degree, has the sensibility to be in a relationship, show up at a gigantic event, engage with you, like, I don't understand. I see no excuse. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not that everybody's the same. We're all made of different stuff. We can't all be as sturdy and sound and steady as Becky. But for God's sake,
her laughing might have been it might have been that dissociative condition.
I'm actually not interested in making excuses for it. Fuck that lady. Shame on you. Is this part of the victim mentality? Like, oh, gee, I'm special. Guess what? My uncle touched me. Okay. Goody. Now we're all a little damaged. Nobody has to take responsibility.
Right. Well, I've talked to other survivors because I started to get this thing that I'm like, do some survivors do not care if it happens to somebody else? It's sort of like, well, and I've gotten some, confirmation of that from actual survivors to say that, kind of like it's happened to me. So it doesn't bother me if it happens to somebody else, or if it happened to me, then
Dude.
fine. But that's human nature. It happens,
No,
people,
that's not
just
human nature.
well,
Not in my view. That's something
well,
else.
but I mean, we do it all the time. Like if I got it, if I'm gonna take it to a very simplistic level. If I had a bad teacher, or my teacher graded me unfairly, then if it happens to the next person, instead of saying, well, that's unfair, well, it happened to me, so it happened to you, that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I guess we'll never unravel the root cause of apathy in one conversation. Apathetic. And what's the root of apathetic? Pathetic. I guess, I'm no paragon, but for God's sakes, showing up matters. And I know that, Howie, you know that. I know that you live that.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say I live it, but, listen, this whole thing, I was thinking about tonight, because if I didn't think you were going to be on, so I was thinking about, I sort of fell into this whole sign holding thing. And
what? You found a sign?
Yeah, I was going around to a couple different rallies, but holding a sign at an intersection, because, during the election, I'm just like, I was an MSNBC person, and I just started watching like these. I knew they were lying, and particularly after Stone Tier. I was distraught. I'm like, this is massive, and they just didn't talk about it. And then just all this stuff, and the polls were coming out, and every day it's something else. Hillary this, and I'm like, well, look at Trump's rallies and look at her rallies. So it was the same thing. Look at Bernie's rallies, look at her rallies. Like, nobody's showing up for her, like, help, and they just keep talking how popular she was. So I just kept getting increasingly frustrated. And I remember the time where I was like, there's an intersection near my apartment. I'm like, well, I guess I could just go out on the street and hold a sign. And I'm like, and I tossed it around, and I went to, Madeleine Albright came one Saturday morning. Madeleine Albright came to a local Hillary office, and I was going to go troll the office, and it was in a strip mall with
There was already a troll there.
Yeah, right. Well, I wanted to say a few things to her, but they snuck her in the back door, and it turned out the whole time she was down at this diner, and I could have just got her right there. But another interesting thing that happened that day, as I was leaving, a tour bus showed up, and all these, people with like Hillary shirts got off it. And so I was getting ready to leave, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I stuck around, and they were literally bussing in door knockers to Philadelphia. That's how important they bust them in. And they were all being paid. They were all being Ubered out, because this was all done outside, and they were all like, does everyone have their Uber codes and everything like that? Uber was getting paid by the Hillary campaign too. I watched it. I have a picture of the tour bus, everything. And I was just like, it was just setting me up, because, I'd gone to a few rallies, I'd been around, and I'm watching like Hillary ground game in Philadelphia was insane. And I'm like, there was no Trump ground game. So I go home. I ride a bike. Yes, I ride a bike, and I get to, I'm crossing over, and I was at the intersection where I stand, and I said, and it just sort of like, well, I just looked. I'm like, well, there's no bigger intersection than this, and it was like 11:30 in the morning. Locked up my bike, and I just started standing there holding my sign, and within an hour or two, a woman had stopped her car, and she parked. There was a gas station across the street, and she ran across the street during red light or whatever, and she was like, "You are amazing," and I'm standing there, I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You are amazing for doing this," and I was like, I was speechless. So that within it was like within an hour or two, and it just. I realized it was something that I should be doing, and that it was a lot. It was a lot easier doing that than holding the pizza /Pita Gate sign, because right now it's a slow grind. But the problem is people, I mean, we have to, and part of the thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is just that people have to realize the average person has no idea. They're
And they
not,
don't want to know.
well, some people will want to know. Some people, yes, some people don't want to know. Some people just couldn't care less. But we just need every single person that would care to try and wake them up. What that percentage, I mean, if there's 320 million people in the United States, and I don't know how many adults or whatever, but if there's 320 million people in the United States, I mean, if we can get 5%, that's 16 million people. If we can get 10%, that's 32 million people. But we're not even close. So this whole thing that everything's been debunked and everything's okay, and everyone's working on, Nick Mack's working on the child trafficking, and the FBI's in on also, everybody's, they watch their kids, and when the story pops up every now and again of a child that was harmed, then, oh God, it's awful, and well, let's get back to whatever we were doing. They don't know. And we create a false reality for ourselves when we're, I mean, obviously we could be doing a lot more without all the censorship and the shadow banning and the suspensions and everything else on social media. But we create a false reality for ourselves when we have, on a good social media day, when things are being tweeted out and, or Facebooked or whatever they call it. And a good votes are popping up and research is being done where it's not nearly enough. We think like we're getting somewhere, and I'm telling you from being in public, people just don't know. And to add on to that, just something, I mean, obviously you and I are, been talking a lot about Seth Rich, and it's real important to us. I mean, everyone, anyone who's listening, anyone who listened to this podcast after, take your own poll. Ask 20 random people, 50 random people. You ever heard of Seth Rich? See how many yeses you get back.
Well, it's an interesting question, Howie, because I would suggest that anyone who is, how do I put this? I'm going to suggest right now that for the most part, like for me, the data's in. The trafficking is real. You don't even have to know these terms, pedo and Pizzagate, to know about DynCorp,
right.
Human trafficking, right. UN, human trafficking. It's a fact.
Fact.
I feel like, first of all, social media is a trap. I had this experience in the last year. I had this idea because I never bothered with it before. I couldn't care about finding out about somebody's new sunglasses online. It just never interested me. But for this activism, I finally got online in that way, thinking it was the place where you networked, and then something happened. And what I've learned, what I experienced, was that is not what it's for. And Twitter, we end up in these little huddles. Briefly, we commiserate. Oh, gee, maybe we exchange a few recipes or a few cute pics. But again, it goes nowhere. And what I'm advocating, what I'm going to suggest right now, is that anybody who is on the fence about Trump, change their mind about him right now. Because if you want to see the house of cards fall, Seth Rich is the card that can cut the deck. I believe that if we demonstrate a public presence requesting an investigation, not that bullshit corrupted petition, although even if it's been manipulated, which I saw with my own eyes, it's still achieved over 60,000 signatures. It may be even higher now. I don't believe they'll allow us to get to 100,000. Maybe I'm wrong. But if we can get a tenth of those people, those I assume were all real people, to show up and publicly request in a vigil, what I mean is something serious, something sober, None of this Antifa violent madness bullshit. I mean a public presence of sane people saying, what happened to Seth Rich? Where is the body cam footage? And I believe Trump is our best ally because it's obvious to me, the Russia hoax is occupying the space this investigation should be taking up. It's in Trump's best interest to change the narrative. And I think he needs our support to do it.
Yeah. I liken it to, a lot of people are sitting around and waiting for Trump and Sessions to, take care of everything.
Well, it's two-pronged. First of all, they're in a pit of vipers. Even the Republicans are against them.
Absolutely. But the door is open. The door is open for we the people to do something. The streets are safe. I understand, but I know the streets are safe. We can get out there, and the police are on our side, the military are on our side, and we're not going to get out on the street and they're going to be billy clubbing up. No, it's not going to happen like that. So, but until we the media,
we have to put our money where our mouth is.
Right. And the media can ignore a couple people standing in front of a building or talking with a bullhorn. They can ignore that. And everyone, wow, a couple of crazy people stand on the street and we'll talk about it. But an optic of 500 people?
God, please let it be so.
No matter where it is, that, in a small space, depending on the size of the space. I mean, an optic of 1,000 people, and we're going to get back, and I like it because the only time in my adult life when anybody really ever did anything was Occupy Wall Street, and they got attention. And it wasn't just that they showed up and didn't leave. Of course, I believe, they were infiltrated and, it turned into, that's how they got broken up. But they weren't ignored. They were not ignored. And the worst thing, if I'm standing at my intersection holding a sign and somebody says something negative against me, that fires me up. I'm okay with that. I'm good. Like, it gets me going. The worst thing that people, when I'm having days, and I've had a few of them this week, where you're just getting a lot of blank stares or no stares at all or nothing, when you're just being ignored, it's the worst thing that can happen because now nobody's paying attention to you.
Oh, my God. So, I relate to that strongly.
Yeah, right. But we have to start gathering some bodies to start putting pressure on because that makes them nervous.
I also want to pivot back to Trump. Undermining him, any of us in this community who undermine him are making a tremendous mistake. He is regime change. He is. I'm sorry, I know they golfed or what the hell ever, but these violent upheavals, this seismic activity in our culture, it's because the old regime is willing to take us down with them. This is all about trying to get rid of him, scaring us. It's incredibly important that anybody here who might be closeted Trumpy get publicly Trumpy. It is important to support him. What he needs to do cannot be done just him and Sessions. He needs support. And whether or not you think the Paris Accord was a good deal for America, I personally don't. You got to admit he is someone who cares about America. I don't want to do a stump speech for Trump, but look at what he's actually doing. This apprenticeship program to bring back the trades. We've needed that for decades. What happened to the trades in this country? Can I point back at a Clinton? NAFTA. He cares about this country. He's a greedy man, but he cares. And he needs our support. He needs us to show up. And those rallies they're trying to scare him out of doing, I feel like we need to bring one to him. Maybe more than one, probably more than one. Please investigate Seth Rich. This was the hack to Lynchkin. What happened to Seth Rich? Why is the DNC being allowed to walk on this? We are with you. And he'll be with us. I believe it. And what other moves do we have? Circle jerking online is not saving anyone. It's not improving anything.
And yeah, I not listen. I don't, you know, it's easy. For me personally, like, you know, and I'll use Neil as an example too. Neither one of us are married. We don't have children. It makes things a little bit easier for us to go out there and do things like that. And I understand that, you know, that people are afraid, but if we really, I mean, if we really want to make some type of dent in this, it's not going to happen online, and it's not going to come from the FBI or the government. It's going to come from the people. We watched, you know, we were trying to think of examples of people making a change. There was, you know, and I forgot about one. There was one, and I believe it was Iceland or Norway, and man, it's the president of the country did something, and I'm telling you, the people showed up. The people showed up right at the president's, you know, whatever they call it. And I really wish I could remember the country. And he resigned the next day. It happened in Korea, South Korea. How many months ago? 2 million people got in the streets.
You're right. And that was a suppressed story. There was some parallels there, as I recall. I don't remember her name.
It didn't get a huge play in the United States because they don't like that stuff. All this freedom to
They don't want to give us any ideas.
They don't want to give you any ideas because that's the one thing. And we've forgotten about this. I mean, the last time that there was any type of demonstrations in this country on any type of consistent basis was close to 50 years ago from Vietnam.
And look what they achieved, and look what happened to their leaders. What was stolen from us in the 60s, I could cry about it right now. We are supposed to be in a different timeline right now. We're supposed to be in a unified country, a civilized country, a well-employed country, a strong family country. We're supposed to be there. We're supposed to have jetpacks too. But what was supposed to happen with Martin Luther King and Howard Ruther, who was leading the labor union movement, who united with King, who brought that march for jobs and equality to D.C.? Does anybody know that that man's whole family was killed in an airplane crash about a year and a half after Dr. King? And it's that unity that they broke. That's what they took from us. A united working class would be unstoppable. And I guess what I want to say to that as well is, if you don't show up now, when are you going to? It's the anniversary of Seth's murder, July 10th. That's a Monday. I'm putting it to you. What are you doing Sunday, July 9th? I'm thinking I'm going to be in D.C. I'm not sure where yet, and this is where input is welcome. Input's always welcome. Is it going to be in front of Buck's Fishing and Camping? Is it going to be a pub crawl on that hot block where we don't go in any bars and we don't utter a word but carry some signs? Is it going to be in front of the White House? It needs to be seen. It's got to be bigger than just Howie. And I'm sorry, I forgot the others who have shown up with you so far, but it can't just be you. It's impossible.
Because we'll be ignored. You know, it'll look nice. Oh, I took pictures. Oh, you know, it's great and everything like that.
And sure, it's a hardship, right? But how many showed up for the con? How many? You know,
and this thing, you know, this type of thing, we have to be a community. I mean, if somebody has a house, you know, like, and they have a couple spare bedrooms or a floor, or, you know, no, like, you know, believe me. You know, all I need is a floor to lay on. I don't care. You know, like you know, this is what grassroots is, and we've got the goods. We've got the topic. We've got what everybody wants. We've got child sex trafficking, child sexual abuse, ritualistic abuse on mass levels to take down the elite. You know, all the people screaming, "Oh, the elites, you know, they're running the world, the globalists, the this, the that, blah, blah, blah." We've got information. We know we know what's going on. And
I'm telling you that Seth is the pin in the dam.
And that's going to right. And that will, because once again, they've already deemed it a conspiracy theory. All we have to do is all we have to do is get the media in the lie. Who came out and said it was? Who came out and said it? We just have to prove one thing, and then it's like it's a domino effect. But we're not going to do it unless people get into the streets. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm not. But I know that's the only way. And I know what one person can do. I can only imagine what 1,000 people can do with the right topic. And we've got the right issue. We've got the right issue.
So what we need is not, let me know when you've got it together and I'll show up. If I had $1 for every time I heard that, I'd probably have about $11, Howie. Pizza.
Yes.
It's a real shame about pizza.
Yeah, PC. Yeah, I know.
But it's got to be, I'm not going to go to Coachella this year or whatever you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to make a difference in this country, and like I said, I don't have kids, but if I did have kids, I'd probably be going harder because I don't want them living in this nonsense.
Howie, I'm going to want to talk to you about the people who showed up for the events that you've already shown up for, because those might be who we're looking. They are definitely the kind of people we're looking for.
Right. The ones, on March 25th, people came from all over the country, and that's a massive commitment. But I mean, I should be able to pull a couple people from, there's enough people on the East Coast that we can get 1,000 people in Washington, D.C. There's enough people in our communities, and it's time. I mean, summer. We have the weather right now because once winter comes, this whole thing started for me in the dead of winter, and I was waiting for the weather to break so I could I could do some more things, because you just can't stand out when it's 20 degrees out. It's difficult. But it's time. So everybody.
It's never going to be the first anniversary of Seth's death ever again.
Right.
It's never going to be a month after a senator who's combating human trafficking was shot, and his staff was shot, and his security was shot. Again, it's never going to be this summer again.
I'm telling you, they don't want us there. They do not want us there. So that's where I'm going. That's where we're going.
I'll be there.
Will you really?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm so stoked.
What, you think I'm all talk? I gave you my bona fides of failure.
Oh, I know you're comfortable. Listen, there's travel restrict. It's hard. I mean, I'm only a 3-hour bus ride away. But
right. I mean, I might not be in karate trim or whatever, but I will be there.
All right. Then I learned something tonight. That's bringing on.
Well, that's why I gave you my bona fides of failure, Howie. I show up too.
All right.
And there's no other time. We will never be sorry we did. We will only regret not doing it. I know I would. That's why I ran off those cliffs this past year. And I know it's why you show up. You have to.
We'll talk about it more.
Yeah, I'm spent.
Next week. All right. Hopefully, John. All right.
Good night.
Talk to everyone next week.